Fictional road comics. So
It's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Just go on the road, Stevie, like Southern John.
Yeah, me and John were gonna hit the road, and that all fell apart. The wheels fell off that one. Let's just say the front tire ran out of air in 7 days on that one.
I have to ask, as someone who knows nothing about comedy, what is so appealing about this offer of touring? Is the money really that great that everyone is willing to?
No, it's not even touring. It's just going to middle America, mediocre, small town, small clubs for a very small sum of money. It's psychotic. It's psychotic.
This is one of the things that I was talking about last week that makes no sense to me, that giving something with so little value is seen as like a reason to...
Yeah, but then you come back to Cleveland like, I'm this road comic, I just work this place, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to like
speak as a professional comic. Okay, here's what happens. As a city comic, you do 15-minute sets. On the road, you do half hour, 45 minutes, an hour. You're always better off doing more time, especially when you're starting out, because when you're forced to do more time, you're forced to create more jokes. That's a fact. So there's some guys who never leave New York City and they do the same 15 minutes forever. So I always loved going on the road because I was forced to stretch my act, and I'd be sitting around, I'd be like, I need jokes. I'm desperate for jokes. And when you're desperate, you'll come up with jokes. When you're not desperate, you won't. You'll watch the fucking Knick game because you know you got your 15 or 20 minutes for the city sets. So that's one of the reasons why you go on the road. But guys who live on the road, that's a torturous life because the money sucks, and you just want to be in New York City getting on TV because you think so. There's a lot of the guys who are on the road. And there's a lot of, drinking and drugs because you're miserable, and then you're trying to fuck fat girls. And so you're getting coke and stuff because, it's just, you're just trying to anything to like make it interesting when you're a road comic, So Ray DeVito, he drives from Cleveland to from Cleveland to New York City just because out of boredom. He's got nothing else going on. So being a road comic is terrible. Go ahead, Stevie.
But also as a New York City road comic, you work the city Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you do the road Thursday through Sunday. So you'd have the home base so that you could do both.
Yeah,
when you came back.
Yeah, but most comics don't have that. Most comics don't do Monday. Like Mark Norman, guy like Mark Norman does Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then he goes on the road. But most comics, like when I started, the only comics that really got road stuff steady was like Geraldo once he was on Tough Crowd or a Tell. Like most city comics, unless you're going to sell tickets, you're not going to get a lot of road work.
Well, especially during the weekday, because most road cities don't have shows on Wednesdays.
Okay, I'm just telling you, I'm a professional comic.
We're not arguing.
I mean,
I know, and I also was in the comedy.
No, but I'm a professional.
As well.
I'm a professional. So I'm saying as a professional, it'd be like you telling the doctor what's wrong with.
Well, no, because I'm a younger generation comic, so I have maybe more of an outlook on how it worked in the 2015, 2016, 2017.
Ideally, you're on the road every weekend, and then you do the city like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Right.
But like when I started, most people couldn't get any road gigs because they weren't known. Most of the guys who do the road in the Midwest are Midwest comics. The only way you're going to get booked in the Midwest for the most part is if you become a national touring act. And back then it was really hard. Now it's easier with Rogan and shows like that and podcasts. But for the most part, you just did road gig. I would take any road gig because it would stretch out my act. But the guys who on the road all the time, they lose their fucking minds. They live in their cars. They live in shitty hotels. They eat like shit. They all get sick. It's a fucking miserable life.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me why anyone would give up anything to do one of these gigs, much less give up a paycheck from here or a relationship.
It's a status thing too, Doc. It's a status thing. If you could say you're a road comic, that puts you one step above the guy who's not a road comic.
Wait, why did Shuli do it, Mr. Kill?
To go hang out with Anthony Kumi on a stream, didn't he? That was a month
but you guys are talking about arbitrary cases. I mean, nobody brags about being a road comic, Stevie. Like Like Ray DeVito says it, but he's a fucking idiot. Nobody brags about it. In 2024, nobody brags about being a road.
The reason
comic.
why Ray brags about it is because other people do brag about it. I'm telling you, it's not your circle. It's not as much your circles, but like the step
You mean guys
below
I've
you.
never heard of?
There are hundreds of comedians in New York City that make a living doing it.
Why would anyone want to be that? Nobody wants to be that. Nobody brags that they're a shitty road comic making $400 a week.
Well, first of all, you have to have a car to be a road comic or know somebody who has a car that'll come on a road.
Anyone can have a car.
And not a lot of people in New York City have a car. Especially comedians.
But you can still get a car. A car's not expensive. You can get a car and be a shitty road comic. Anybody can. Ray DeVito gets shitty road gigs. No one's impressed by that. Nobody's impressed by a guy who says he's a road comic.
Yeah, but I mean, to take it a step lower, anybody can be a fucking New York City comedian. Look at me,
not making
for example.
Not making a living.
But how are you going to get there to making a living? You can't just drop into comedy and just start making a living. You have to eat shit. You have to go through the road.
You don't know what you're talking about. I was a professional comic.
Okay.
I was a New York City comic. I worked my way up through the clubs, and I got TV. Then I would get spots in the city clubs, but I still couldn't get worked on. I couldn't get road gigs because I wasn't known as a road comic. I wasn't from the Midwest. I didn't have any connections with the local clubs. So you're living in some fantasy where it's like what you think you heard. I lived it.
What do you mean?
I fucking lived it.
Okay. Again, I think
you're not a comic. You're not a comic.
Okay. Again, all right. Now you're just
not. You're not. Show me your 1099s. Did you make a living as a comic in any
but
year?
I performed stand-up for years in New York City, and I got paid to do that. So
and
what
you
the
made
fuck
a
is
living
now?
at you
So
made a living.
Please tell me what your definition then of comedy.
You make a living as a comic.
I can show you my W-2s, my 10, whatever the fuck, the 1099s.
Did you ever make a living as a comic?
We've gone over this before. I was
No, we
working.
haven't.
I was working a full-time job when I started producing at Compound, and then I quit that job for 2 years and only performed comedy in New York City as a living. Okay, so that's how.
And how much did you make?
That's how I met you at the Stand one night. I wasn't fucking performing there, but I had just come from performing down at the Grizzly Pear over at the fucking Soho Playhouse. I was performing all over the tri-state area and getting paid to do it. Okay, like there are a lot more stages out there than just the Comedy Cellar and the Village Underground, which are the places that you would play. There's a whole huge amount of stages in Manhattan.
What's your point?
All I'm saying is that while I was doing that and I was performing multiple times every night throughout the city, you would hear these dumb fucks brag about being road comics or trying to be like, "Oh, hey, you have a car? I could get us gigs out in fucking Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, or wherever the fuck shit town that road comics go to." And it's like if I had a car, I could have got those gigs, but I didn't. And then I fucking stopped doing comedy.
You're saying you didn't have $500 for a car?
No. In New York City, absolutely, I could not afford a car, man.
Cars cost $500.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're saying
parking,
if you had a car,
come on, man.
You're saying if you had a car, you could be a road comic.
Yes, 100%. As a matter of fact,
so
people who have cars get booked for road gigs as just
Steve,
a
you don't know
driver.
What you're talking about. First of all, you can get a zip car for $100 for
You have
a
to
night.
have credit to apply to get a zip card. You're not understanding how shitty the lives are of the majority of comedians in New York City.
Credit to get a zip car?
I could, but I don't do comedy no more, and I wouldn't want to fucking put all that money out. The little money that you make. What's that?
How about when you did comedy? Why didn't you get a zip car then?
Because I had no problem getting on stage in New York City or Jersey City.
What did you make?
It was shitty. I was making Ray DeVito money. That's why I went back and got a real job.
What's your point?
I don't know what my point is. I was just telling you that people in New York City in the comedy scene, they put that idea of being a road comic as like a notch up. Like a guy who has a commercial, a comedian who's been in a fucking TV commercial, that puts that person one notch above everyone who hasn't had a TV commercial. But what does that mean? He had a TV commercial. He got lucky. He got booked. But literally, that'll get someone a notch over everyone else, you know, and they'll act like they're the king shit because they got a fucking commercial. Just like someone who's a road comic like Ray DeVito tries to act like they're king shit.
Nobody cares about road comics in 2024. Nobody does. I mean, you're dealing with like open micers who think that's impressive. It's not. Nobody thinks that.
Sure.
I mean, you're dealing with people who think Ray DeVito's something. Ray DeVito is not anything. Ray DeVito's not even a road comic. He doesn't get any road gigs.
All true here.
He's on the road, but he doesn't get any gigs.
I'm not specifically talking just about Ray, though, you know?
You're talking about people no one's ever heard of and nobody ever will hear of.
It's not true, man. That's not true. The people that I worked with. All right, so like a guy. Okay, like
Dubuchet, Andre Dubuchet.
No, like say like Eagle Witt. Eagle Witt is a decent comedian. Oh,
Andre
shit. Are you there? Eagle Witt's a decent comedian, and that's a guy that I used to work with at like the Grizzly Pear or at the Soho Playhouse
And
before he got passed, and then is now working Vegas, working everywhere. So
working Vegas with Siegfried and Roy. Who is he working Vegas
no,
with?
he's like he goes out and does long stands out.
He works the Comedy Cellar in Vegas.
Okay, that's
another
thing,
gig.
you know?
That's another.
But that's
gig.
a guy who like worked his way up.
He's not good. He's not good. He's not good. I've seen him many times. He worked at the Cellar. I've seen him many times. He's not going to go anywhere in comedy. Next.
I don't know. My experiences are different than everyone else's. I get that, and I have to.
No, but I'm saying it doesn't matter. It'd be like me telling. It'd be like the lady at Compound Media telling me my collarbone was broken because she used to be a nurse.
Allie?
And then I go to my doctor, and it was a lady doctor. I was risky at the time. I lived on the edge. Lady doctor. She's a fantastic doctor, and but she's like she kind of just like when I told her the story, she looked at me like, who told you that? And then she's like, no. So again, I'm a professional comedian. I've been on all the shows. I've been on every show you could possibly be in New York. I was at the beginning. I started in the 90s. I was doing comedy, I've been doing comedy a long time. So I know way more about comedy than most people, especially about New York. And I saw how things worked. So you could tell me like what happens at open mics. It's like Ray DeVito telling me shit, and I'm like, Ray, shut the fuck up. You're not a real comic.
You met Dave Chappelle once, right?
Yeah, and he shook my hand after he got 4 stars. And I got 3. I thought I got 2.75, but I got 3. So it wasn't as bad a beating as I thought it was when I saw it on Twitter. He got a perfect score and I got 3.